So today we are looking at the Scotch opening. I recommend it if your online rating is below 1400 because it will teach you how to attack and you will get many tactics on the board. Above that, I think people will have their pet lines and know how to neutralize it pretty well, although you can play it at, I think, any level. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight to c6, and now the Scotch opening starts with pawn d2 to d4. And white is looking for an immediate fight. As you can see, he liberates all of his pieces very quickly. So he wants to probably go bishop c4, maybe bishop d3. Bishop b5 is, I think, less common, but maybe in some cases it will be a possibility. This bishop can go to f4 or g5, maybe e3 in some cases. You see the pieces get out very quickly. That's the advantage. And the white wants to use his slight lead in development to start building an attack rather quickly. So the disadvantage is that it immediately releases the tension in the center. Black usually takes, and after knight takes d4 there are a number of good moves for black, but you see that many people actually make the mistake of taking on d4 here. And why is that a mistake? Well, you developed the knight to c6, now you're taking on d4, so you are spending 2 tempi to get rid of your developed knight. Okay, you're also getting rid of white developed knight, but in return, the queen again comes here very active on d4, and now it can't be chased away easily. So probably black would have to try something like this. We have seen this idea before. Let's see how many games continue. d6, which I think isn't the most active, but as you can see here, many players play like this. And after knight c3, knight f6, bishop f4. We actually have seen this position in a lot of openings. You see it in the Roy Lopez, you can see it in the 4 Knights Scotch. Here you see it in the regular Scotch. The point is that white wants to castle along very quickly, put pressure here on the d-file, and also with the bishop on f4 it maybe supports some e5 push IDs. So let's say bishop e7, castles long. I'm showing you some common replies. This is of course not the best reply for black. This is not the best line for black. But just to see what can happen if black just plays seemingly logical moves but a bit passive. So f3, we're covering here the square g4, so there is no more knight g4 or bishop g4, and we want to push our pawns up the board with g4, g5, h4, maybe h5, maybe push these pawns all the way up. Support it with our pieces, bring the bishop out somewhere, maybe e2, maybe d3, maybe c4. Bring the rooks here on the open files. Here bishop e6 by black. I'm still following the most popular continuation. So bishop to e6, here king to b1, overprotecting this a2 square. So let's say black would play something like maybe c6 or c5, then queen a5. Now this pawn is protected sufficiently. And after a6, it's important that black tries to get some counterplay here with b5, b4 on the queen side. But in this case, He's already a bit late, as you can see here by the engine evaluation. White already has a huge advantage. So g4, b5, and here many players played h4, which is a nice move. But I really like here the move knight e5. Why? Well, black is going to push b4 anyway, and that would win a tempo on our knight. So why not bring the knight into the attack as well? And if black wants to trade, that's not fine. He will have to trade off one of the defenders of his king side. If not, we can take out maybe one of these pieces. So black trades, and after bishop to d7, now we can play h4. And we have very nice ideas like putting the bishop here, pushing these pawns further, putting the rooks on the semi-open files, which we can open with g6 is a common idea, h6. What you want to do is make sure that black can't close the position here on the king side with his pawns. Maybe he wants to put these pawns here and here. So h6, g5, when our pawns would be positioned like this. So that would lead to a closed position. We don't want that, of course. We can always maybe drop this bishop back somewhere and then push f4, f5, but that would take time, and I think you will find you can find better pawn moves to open this position, like maybe g6 at some point. Especially with this bishop supporting that break. So this is not good for black, but this is how typically a game in the Scotch can go. If you are facing a player who is not that familiar and who is playing logical moves but a bit passive, he can often quickly get worse. Now, this is not a repertoire video. I just want to show you the common ideas, but I do want to show you some ideas black might have for trading the queens. He can do that with queen f6, which in this position I think is a decent try. And here I think we shouldn't trade queens. First of all, we are investing a tempo in capturing it, and black can take back with the knight, so we are kind of helping him develop. So you see then also after the knight moves, he immediately attacks his pawn e4, which might mean we have to defend it, and we even have to be a bit careful, I think. So f3 would be reasonable. But after knight c3, black can even try to go b4 here and pin our knight here, so to put pressure on the pawn. You don't want all that stuff. So instead, I think best thing is to move the queen out of the way. You can also see it here in the stats that, well, this doesn't score well for white. You're just helping black. So we have more space. We want to keep the queen in the center. So a good square here is queen to c4. So we still have the same ideas of developing our pieces. Obviously, we can't develop our bishop to c4 anymore. So maybe e2 or c3 would be good. And now let's take a look at what black usually tries. So c6. Trying to go maybe d5, trying to go maybe b5. So with knight c3, we develop, we overprotect this pawn, and we are also stopping any d5 ideas, which is why I think black often goes b5. And after we drop the queen back to d3. b3 is possible, but I think you don't want to leave the queen a bit vulnerable on the queen side. It's perfectly fine here in the center. And black usually plays c5. And then a good move here is actually bishop to e3. I just said, well, You might be thinking, well, you just said we have more space, so we don't want to trade pieces. But you have to compare the pieces. First of all, this queen is blocking the natural development of the knight. So it will either the queen will have to move or the knight will have to do something like this. This pawn is also blocking the knight from coming to c6, which is usually a good square. And also, if you look at these pawns, they are totally restricting this bishop. So the only good pieces here, I think, in this position are the dark squared bishop here and the queen. And also once the dark squared bishops are traded off, then black will have some dark squared weaknesses here around the king. So here queen takes e3, knight e7, castles long as per the plan. You might think isn't as scary since black will maybe be very fast with his pawns. But you have to think he won't be able to checkmate us with only these pawns here. And this queen is really the only piece who puts pressure on our queen side. And of course we can do stuff in the meantime as well. Like pushing this queen back, making use of the fact that it's a bit vulnerable on f6. And after bishop d3 we are targeting h7 again. Maybe with some ideas to push our pawns here. Maybe you can even consider g4, sacrificing the g pawn. And why would you want to do that? Well, then you open the g file very effectively, you see. So that might also be a nice idea to open the g file and then maybe run your h pawn up the board, maybe double on the d file. Well, there are maybe queen e4, this battery here with the queen and the bishop. There are a lot of ideas here. Let's say what black wants to improve his piece. Then, for example, we have this double attack. We don't really win a piece since black can give a check, and after king b1 we can in fact, well, the rook has to go back, and we can in fact win this pawn here on d7. Note that the queen isn't vulnerable since this is actually checkmate in 2. This is a common motive with this knight kind of blocking the back rank. Well, the king is weak on the back rank, and this knight can't, since it's here, it can't jump to f8 to block. And that's why you often see these back rank checkmates with a knight on the second rank here and the king behind the pawns. So let's take a look at black's better moves. First of all, bishop to c5. Very logical, you're developing the bishop, attacking this knight 2 times. And here I think one of the, well, there are a few good moves, but one you can play, for example, is bishop to e3. And you are threatening actually, well, it's not like you're playing for this trick, but you actually have a threat of taking the knight on c6, therefore attacking the queen. So either the queen has to move or the pawn has to take, and after pawn takes, white can take out this bishop here on c5. For example, let's say something like knight f6, then knight c6, b takes, bishop takes, is game over for black. And also if he tries to cover here, that's also not great, since you have, well, black doesn't immediately lose material, but after takes, black is forced to take back, and after bishop takes c5, d takes c5. This structure is horrible, These pawns are all very weak, and black is just strategically losing. White will just develop and pick up these queenside pawns at some point. Yeah, so here you can indeed take out the queen first, then go after these pawns. There are, well, a lot of ways you can do this. You can long castle or short castle, and when the rook is on d1, you can double on the d file. You can maybe, not sure if that's the best since the pawn is blocking it. I wanted to say maybe fianchetto this, but I don't think that's the greatest here. Maybe just put the bishop on c4. Well, the point is these pawns here are extremely weak. This is just a disaster for black. So that's why after bishop to e3, black has to try something else. What he usually does is queen f6. White usually goes c3. And now probably we will castle kingside. The reason is that, well, you could still castle queenside, but the problem is that this b5, b4 move, since we already included c3, will come very fast. So our queenside castle, let's say, isn't that is a bit less safe than in the normal lines. So now let's take a look at perhaps black's best move, knight to f6. He is attacking the pawn on e4, trying to make our knight go to c3. And his idea is, after we go knight to c3, to put his bishop on b4. And you see here, I think black is solving most of his problems. You can maybe try to take out his pawn to at least give black doubled pawns. And after bishop d3, at some point black will play d5, possibly undoubling his pawns. And what white typically does is to castle. Maybe you can move the knight away, or maybe you can try to force black to take on c3, so you have open files here on the b and the d file and the two bishops. But all in all, it's still quite alright for black. That's why also after knight f6, many white players immediately go knight to c6, and after b takes c6, you see, let's say e5 is a popular move, bishop to d3 is also popular. So then black can play d5, and well, here he will play c6 and have a nice solid position. So before we go on with the next part, I just wanted to mention that in many cases we are trying to target this pawn on f7. This pawn on f7 or the square can often be a bit weak. So maybe we will have opportunities to, with bishop c4 and knight to g5, to put pressure on it. Maybe also we can come with the queen to h5. Those are all typical ideas. And finally, well, so this f7 square definitely something to take note of. Finally, I wanted to quickly mention some gambits you can get from the Scotch Opening. So after e4, e5, knight out, and this move. Here, two popular gambits are bishop to c4, which is the Scotch gambit. Again, you are maybe targeting this pawn on f7. you want to develop very quickly, maybe include the move c3 so that your knight also gets developed very quickly. The Scotch Gambit is one of the solid gambits out there. It is actually legit, very interesting. And here also maybe a bit lesser known is the move c3, the Goring Gambit. I think it's called after some German master or grandmaster, not the historical figure. Don't worry about that. So I just wanted to quickly mention that if you want to sharpen things up, I think both this move bishop c4, the Scotch Gambit, and this move c3, the Goring Gambit, are very interesting options for whites. So that's all for today. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe or leave a comment, and I will see you maybe in one of the next ones.